Hello everyone, it's Lindsay, and today I'm back with a different type of process video for you guys. If you watched my recent unboxing of Delivered to the Saints, then you'll have kind of an idea of what this is, but I'll just fill you in here. The Delivered to the Saints devotional is the October kit from By the Well for God, and in that unboxing, I do mention that this kit did sell out. It sold out very quickly. In fact, By the Well for God did even offer just the devotional booklet, which is a rarity that they do that, and these sold out as well. So unfortunately, the devotional studies sold out, the kits are sold out. But in that unboxing, I detail and showed you some of the extra items that were available with the release that are still available in the shop. And a lot of people just really love just the entire feel of the release for this month. And so I wanted to give you guys some alternative ways that you could be using those products and maybe some alternative projects that you could be doing this month if you missed out on the devotional study. Now, what I'm going to show you today can work for working through the study as well, but I wanted to just kind of give you guys some variety of options. So unfortunately, this did sell out, but you can check out that unboxing to see all of the items from the release. And in fact, they have restocked a couple things that were out of stock even when I did that video. I know label stickers are there now. I did see a few more of the DIY mini book kits. Those are still in the shop. And so there are a few of the ladies on the team that have already done videos constructing this booklet. And so I didn't want to just, do something that's already been done. I want to give some variety for you guys and some different options. So these kits are awesome because everything that you need to create a mini book is included. You just have to add, whatever like extra floofy things that you want in there when you're creating a mini book. But in that unboxing, I had mentioned that if you missed out on the devotional study, this would be a good month to maybe catch up on some past studies that you haven't finished, or take advantage of the free study materials that By the Well has on their website. So Tom from By the Well for God, he is in seminary now, and as part of his seminary, he has to do some work with his local church. And so he has been assembling sermon note, what are they calling these? Sermon notes? I guess they're sermon notes to go along with their local church's sermons. And so these are available for free on their website. So when I had done that unboxing, I had 9 of them. They have now released number 10 and number 11. So there are 11 separate sermon studies that are available completely for free. I did just double check their church's website, and you can stream or, on demand look at the sermon videos if you want to. Now, Tom does mention that you don't need to listen to the sermon necessarily to utilize these sermon studies. Maybe you don't have the time for that. There is enough information in here for you to kind of dig in and do some study around the topic of these sermons. There's some reflection questions, kind of just like mini devotional studies. But these are actual sermons that are there at their church. Now, I haven't listened to any of them yet, but I know Tom and Lori pretty well. I've been working with them for several years, and we match up pretty much on just about everything theologically, and have high expectations for, biblically grounded churches and things like that. So, of course, with any church, even your own church, you're not going to agree 100% on everything. And so always just looking at things through the lens of scripture. Not that I have any doubts. I just want to say that because I know we all come from different backgrounds and different experiences, different denominations, all of that. I just want good teaching from the Bible. Let's teach the Bible. So I love that they have offered this resource as something for free for you guys. I know we're all on a variety of different budgets, and as much as we love all of the goodies that By the Well has and their studies, not everybody is in the budget where they can purchase the full studies. So I love that they offer this. Really, their heart is to get people in the Word. And so I'm going to take this month. I'm going to work on the devotional Delivered to the Saints on my own, but I won't be posting necessarily from this. I think I'm going to focus on these sermon studies for the next few weeks. And so I wanted a way that I could work through these creatively, obviously, in one place, or in, maybe a couple places, but it's going to be one central place theme. Let me just say that. So I've gone ahead and printed out my sermon studies, and I had mentioned in that unboxing that they did 2 paper packs this month. They did the paper pack, of course, that goes with Delivered to the Saints. This has lots of fun vintage papers. You could mix and match between these 2 packs, but this was more created specifically for the Delivered to the Saints release. And so you may want to pick up both, but I want to highlight this one here. This is the vintage paper pack. This is new. There's 24 double-sided papers, 3 of each design, and this is part of their shop classics. So I think this will stay in the shop for the foreseeable future. And one really neat thing that I noticed when I was unboxing these is that they have like scanned in book covers as pages. So, you know, there's all this fun grungy texture, but there are a few of these papers that you can see this book binding on the side here. So it's like they scanned in an old vintage book. And because there's 3 of each design, that means you have a front and a back cover. You just kind of have to, you know, turn it, like this is the same paper, so I turned it upside down. That way the binding is the binding, right? Okay, so I went through and picked out all of the papers that didn't have a book cover necessarily, which was a significant amount of the papers. So I don't remember exactly how many pages I pulled. You just need to adapt this project to what works for you. But I had mentioned that I wanted to use a book binding tool and bind and make my own like book journal to work through these sermon studies. Now, remember, if you don't want to go through all of this, you want kind of one and done, they do sell the DIY mini book kits. These are a little more on the plain side. The idea is that you would embellish this, but this comes with a different type of binding. And again, I'll, check out some of the girls on the team, but it does come with one of the Tyvek cover, so a nice durable cover. It comes with like chipboard pieces, and then you use glue to create more of like a hardbound book. And then you wrap the center with some thread, and you're creating like little signatures that slip into those threads. It does also come with some mini folders. So this is just a different style of mini book than what I'm going to show you today. One is not better than the other. They're just completely different. And like I said, you can see some of the ladies on the team and how they used that book. But this method is really great for binding individual sheets. We don't always have papers that are big enough to like fold in half and create signatures with, or maybe we have, individual pages that we've created and we want to bind those all together. This is an option for that. That method of creating booklets where you fold them in half and then staple down the center is great. I love that binding, but this is better suited for like individual pages. So I went through and picked out a variety of the papers from the vintage paper pack, and then I mixed in some of my own papers. So these are papers that I dyed using distress reinkers. I have a shorts video on YouTube showing how I did that. It's really, really simple. I prefer this method over coffee dyeing or tea dyeing because the distress inks are non-toxic, acid-free. They are meant to be, I don't have to worry about it like mildewing or having a weird smell. Like everybody has tea dyed, everybody's coffee dyed. Not everybody, but like it's been around for a really long time. I know a lot of people, that's their go-to method. I was just a little bit hesitant of using like food products in my crafting. Again, I know there's things that you can do. If you are comfortable with that, go for it. But I also am just wanting to use what I have. I have a bunch of the distress reinkers that are not getting loved. And so I like that I have a variety of colors. I don't have to know whether, onion skins are a certain color or coffee is a certain color or, all these different products that you can dye paper with, or not products, but foods and things like that, dye certain colors. The distress reinkers, I know the distress color line and I can color them whatever I want. So all that to say, that is what I have, is a bunch of different papers in here that I have done that to. I've taken like graph paper, I have used just regular copy paper, some cardstock, some ledger paper, and these have all been dyed in that process. And I did this over a year ago. I made these and I'm still continuing to use them. So I'll link that shorts video down below if you want to see how I did that process. But I went ahead and cut down some of those papers to the same 6x8 that these pattern papers are. And then I just alternated one of these papers because these are a little bit easier to write on than these papers. These have a little bit of a coating on them. So your pens do take a little bit longer to dry, and there's a lot more going on, right? It's a lot busier on here. There are ways to mitigate that. I can put a 3x5 card. I can add some white paint, that kind of thing. But I thought about maybe having like a more decorative space, and then, you know, a journaling space was kind of my thinking. Now, you could go super crazy with this, and I almost did for the sake of the video because I always feel like I need to just, you know, more is better. So you need to have all of your pieces together before you do this binding technique, because once it's bound, it's bound. It's kind of tricky to go and take things apart and add things in. And so I thought about adding, you know, envelopes and journaling cards and pockets and doilies and fabric and all these kinds of crazy things. And I'm like, you know what? We don't always have to do these over-the-top, crazy, convoluted journals. They can be very simple. And so as you can see, this is very simple. It's just 6x8 pattern papers and my dyed papers. And then I can go in and add my die cuts and things like that. But as far as before I stitch it together, I'm not gonna get fussy, but you can get fussy with yours. I just want to show you the method. So I had mentioned in that unboxing that We Are Memory Keepers, but they're We Are Makers now. They've rebranded. We Are Makers has this book binding tool. Mine is the pink one. This is the Paige Evans branded one. Paige Evans does a lot of these like Coptic style books. And so it comes with this template here. So whether you're doing individual pages or stitching down like folded signature pages, and then it comes with this little package, which is really nice. Everything is, you know, together. It made it really easy when I did finally find it in my office. I knew everything was together. Comes with an awl for punching your holes, comes with some waxed thread. So that's really nice that you don't have to go hunt that down. Waxed thread is just a little bit easier to work with, but you can use embroidery floss or things like that. So this tool makes it easier because everything is put together, but by no means you have to have this tool to do what I'm showing you, and you'll see you can kind of adapt it for what you have. But it does come with a straight needle and a curved needle, depending on what, you know, technique you're doing, what you prefer, all that goodness, and then a good amount of that wax thread. And then it does have directions. Now, I will say, the downside to this tool is I feel like the directions are not entirely user-friendly. I have now done a couple of these books, and every single time I just go to YouTube and figure out how to do it from a video because I feel like the directions are not all that great. And they are super, super, super teeny tiny. So that is just kind of one of the cons of this. But it does show you how to do a traditional saddle stitch. This is that stitch that you do inside the center of a folded page. And you can see it gives you the diagram of how to do it. But like I said, it's confusing to me. There is the traditional like Coptic style binding. So you can bind together multiple signatures and you get this, you know, really fun loopy, I'm thinking, I have a couple journals like that, but the spine is covered so you can't see. So you could bind it together and then, you know, cover the spine if you wanted to. And then in the back here is some Japanese bound sewing techniques. And they do have some fun patterns for you to do. We're not going to do any complicated patterns today. We're going to do fairly simple because I want to mimic what's on here. So this is actually Japanese bound is the way that this particular book that was scanned in. Now, I did see some comments on some other YouTube videos that said it's actually originated in China, that it's Chinese bound and then the Japanese. I have not done a ton of research into that, so I apologize if somebody wants to correct. I'm sure, you know, there will be some people that say it's Japanese, some people that will say it's Chinese. Unfortunately, I'm not 100% sure, so I'm sorry about that. But this says Japanese bound sewing. And so there are a variety of different fun, like decorative ways that you can do this. I know there's even more on YouTube, but we're just going to stick to this more simple way of binding. And so it's very, very simple. I'll probably end up putting you guys on fast forward at some point, but I went ahead and marked out. So when I looked on YouTube, there are a variety of ways to kind of space out your holes by folding some paper to make a template or measuring out your holes. This paper pack makes it kind of easy because you can already see where those binding spots are. So I went ahead and lined this up, and then I just used a little marker to mark the holes that I'm going to use in this template and to match the binding that's already on here. Now, another thing that I noticed that I don't particularly love, and we'll see if this makes a difference, but the directions have you using like the center of the template, and so it makes for like a really, I'm trying to see if there's a picture in here, really wide, deep binding that goes pretty far into the book, which then makes it so you have narrower space to work on. So since I'm already working on a 6x8, which is a little bit smaller, I'm going to keep it more narrow like it is on here. I may regret that. You know, it might tear over time, but we're going to try it and see what happens. So very, very simply, you're just going to loosen your template. My book is too fat to put the whole book in here, so I'm just going to do a couple pages at a time to get started, and then like I said, I'll fast forward and kind of skip around for you guys so you're not just sitting and watching me punch holes in a book. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten this down now that I got it all the way up to the edge there, and then again, I have marked my holes, so I can go through and just punch that with the awl, punch that with the awl. So I have 4 holes that I'm punching, and you can do more than one page at a time. I just kind of want to show you, you want to make sure that your awl can go through there, and then we'll go through the stitching process. So let me go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and punch all my holes, and we'll come back and I'll show you the stitching technique to put this together. Okay, it's only been like a 1/10 of a second for you guys, but it's been 3 days for me. I had to turn off the camera, step away, life happened, prepping for midterms. My son had another seizure, unfortunately, the other night. So it's just been a little chaotic around here, but we're gonna get this video finished. And so I ended up doing some things off camera that I'm gonna walk you through. So last that I saw you, a second ago, I was punching the holes. So I went ahead and punched all of the holes in each and every single paper. And then I did go ahead on camera and finish the stitching, but then I decided to take that all out and do an extra step that I think will work a little bit better. So what I did and what you can see here is I actually scored and folded the pages. Because my book has so many pages, it's pretty thick. And so I found that once I had it stitched, it was a little bit, I don't know, hard to open up, and it will never really be like a lay flat type binding, but I think scoring it will help. So I have a score tool. There's a lot of different score tools. You can even use the groove if you have one of these trimmers. There is a groove right here where your trimmer blade runs. I know they have score blade, like they're not blades, but they're score tools that you can switch out, or just using a regular bone folder. I'll link one of these down below. You can use that to score in that groove. And so I went ahead and each page individually, I scored, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/8 inch in is what I did. I mean, just so you could even do like a half of an inch. So it makes it so that these holes are kind of in the center of this, piece here. I did go ahead and score. I folded the pages back and forth along that score line on each one. That way I have, you can see that those lines there. So that is what I did off camera. I did also go ahead and just clip everything together to hold it together before we go into the next step. I did find that once I scored it, some of the pages, you need to make sure they're lined back up, that the holes are lined back up. And I did go with my awl and just make sure that I push all the way through both front and back. You want to make sure that those holes are really, well punched. That's going to make your stitching much easier. And by coming through, once it's all held together, it kind of, I don't know, when you do it with them all together, it pushes the pages together so your holes are lined up, and it kind of gets the fibers of your papers to kind of grab a hold of each other. That way it's a little bit easier to, like I said, push your needle through when you are stitching. So that is all kind of the things that I did off camera. Now let's finish up stitching. So like I mentioned, what comes in this setup is some waxed cotton thread. You can use embroidery thread as well. Just know the embroidery thread, because it's not waxed, the threads themselves can pop apart. So you just need to be careful when you are stitching, because we are going to go through holes multiple times and you don't want to split your threads. You want to keep those all together. So you can also wax your own thread. You can just get a candle. They sell wax specifically for waxing thread, and then just wax a portion of your embroidery thread or, you know, whatever you're using. It does kind of strengthen it as well. So you're going to want 5 times the height of your book. That's how much thread that you want. It is a little bit more than you need, but we need that to tie. So there's 1, there is maybe 2, there's 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 5 times the height of my book. That's how much I need. And then we'll go ahead and just thread our needle, and I'll walk you through. Like I said, there are tons and tons of videos for this out there. So if mine is hard to see, you know, just YouTube Japanese bookbinding, and there's a whole bunch of different ways to do it. Everybody has a different, you know, kind of method they prefer. Now, I like the idea of my knot being in the center of my book. I think that the way that these directions are set up in here is to have the knot on the back of the book, and I don't want that. I want it a little bit cleaner. So what I'm going to do is so this is the top front of my book. This is the bottom front of my book. I'm starting with the second hole. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to start at the second hole, and I'm actually going to kind of split open my book roughly half. You could go and count your pages and make sure it's directly in the center. I don't care about that. So I'm going to actually come up through the bottom of that hole to the front cover from the center of my book. And this is going to hide my tails in my book. So I want to leave, you know, enough thread that I can tie at the end, and we're going to let that fall down towards this side of the book. Remember, this is the binding. This will be the open side. So we're going to let that tail drop down towards the open side of the book. Then you're going to go ahead and wrap around the spine and then back up through that same hole and pull that tight. And I'll be able to pull that tighter once I tie it as well. So now I have got 1 wrap around my spine. I'm going to go ahead and go down the 3rd hole from the top. This is the front of my book. I'm going to go down through that hole and then pull that fairly tight. Okay. And then so now I'm on the back. I'm going to wrap around to the front and go down through that same hole, and that is going to wrap around the edge of my binding. And so you can see we're starting to just follow the lines that are already scanned in on this particular paper. So I'm on the back side. Now I'm going to come up through the bottom of the bottom hole, right? So I'm coming from the back to the front of the bottom hole. That's going to give me that one there. We are going to wrap around the spine, come back up through that hole. Again, if you're using just regular embroidery floss, make sure that you're not splitting your threads. And then we're going to let this be the outside edge, right? And then we're going to create that corner piece because this particular print does have it on the corner. Some people online don't do this bottom side, but you know, I'm going to go ahead and do it. So we are going to go around the bottom of the book, come back up through that same hole, letting that, so you're creating like a little square down at the bottom here. Pull that nice and tight. And then we're going to go up and down through the 3rd from the top hole. And you can slow this down, rewind, you know, whatever you need to do. Once you start doing it, it's pretty simple. You're just kind of following along. So then we're going to go straight across to the 2nd from the top. And then we're going to go through there to the front. So now we're just doing lots of weaves, right? We're going to go down through the top hole. And this one, we are going to wrap our binding. So I'm on the back side. I'm going to come around to the front, down through that top hole. That's going to wrap our edge. And then I'm going to come up from the top, down through that top hole, and this is going to create our top edge, right? And then now we are going to meet up with our other tail. So this is the back, this is that second hole, and then we need to find where the tail is, because we're only going to push through to, and you can like make a little marker for yourself if that's helpful. We're just doing this on the quick because I have like 5 other videos to film today. Okay, so I found where my other tail is. So I'm going to come up from the back, and I'm only going to go through to the inside of the book. I'm not going to go all the way to the front cover. And this is going to give us our tails. And already I can see that my book is laying much better with those scored edges. So I want to pull this nice and tight. You don't want it so tight that you're cutting into your paper, but I mean, you do want it, you know, nice and tidy, right? So I'm going to kind of pull these if I need to and tighten them up. Okay, so now we can go ahead and just do a double knot in the center here. And that is going to finish up binding that. And it might seem a little tedious at first, but trust me, it goes pretty quick once you're getting going and making several of these books. So now we've got our binding, right? Nice and put together. And because I've scored my pages, it lays open a little bit better. So this is so much better. When I first had filmed it, I guess I should have left that footage in for you guys. It was like really hard to get these pages to lay, and now it's laying flat because I've scored every one of those pages. It's not a perfect lay flat, but definitely better than not doing the score. And it's also not putting as much strain on my binding. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I was a little nervous about this pulling through these holes because I had it so much closer to the edge than what the directions say. So I would for sure say, go ahead and score all of your pages. That's really going to help your book just lay a little bit better. So there is my journal. Like I said, you can go crazy. You can add in journaling cards and fabrics and doilies and envelopes and, you know, whatever else you want in here before you bind it. But I'm just going for a very simple book. That way I can take my notes, maybe throw a little bit of decorative, you know, stickers or die cuts or whatever in there and keep it pretty simple. These would be really fun to do for prayer journals also. I think this would be a really, really fun activity. So I'm looking forward to pulling out some of my other, you know, I have a ton of by the well papers left over from kits. Maybe just take your leftover papers and make a bunch of journals and have them on hand. These would be fun, like handmade gifts as we are getting ready to enter into the holiday season. That makes me a little bit sick to my stomach even thinking about that. But these might be fun little personal gifts. You could do this with ribbon if you wanted it, you know, really decorative and pretty. You could add, you know, little charms on here if you wanted to. You could do several of these booklets and then bind them all together. I mean, there's just lots of different things that you can do with such a simple method. So there's a look at how I did that. I will go ahead. You can leave questions and comments down below. I will respond to those. Check out the description box for links to everything that I mentioned and used in today's video. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, if it was helpful, inspiring. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. And until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.